next, let's move on to the Indianapolis Colts. And the Colts, again, were one of those teams that kind of surprised me on the end of it, because we wanted to look at this rookie and see what they're going to get, out of him and stuff. Richardson goes down early after a few games. He looked pretty good, some turnovers, but but had promise, it looked like. But then just a hodgepodge of some quarterbacks here and there. And Gardner Minshew, though, really shined, and did really well. And he kind of rejuvenated his career. He's kind of been there on the spotlight here for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then moved on as a backup here throughout the league. And it seemed like he was just going to be stuck as that backup role that can kind of get you where you need to get to when he's in the game, but not enough to be your guy to rely on. And he really performed well. And you could see the difference in this team when he was out there, and he brought fire too. And that's the one thing you could always see about Gardner Minshew when he is in the game, that he did this, but he's not there anymore. So now you've got to go back to that rookie and Richardson. And we hope to see him this season be what we kind of started to see last year and kind of lead this team back here. And it's kind of funny because despite, some of, the rankings that we see with this Indianapolis Colts team, I think they were ranked 27th overall, stuff like that. They were kind of just doing a lot. Like if you see a lot of their pass rushers and their guys on the defensive side of the ball, sacks galore, just spreading the ball around, just getting pressure. It's just coming up on a shoot and the stick, I guess, is the only way to do it. Even when it get down to the red zone, they had a pretty good, top 15, I think, red zone defense here. So, but just bend and then eventually break. But they were a good team last year. I'm excited to see what's going to happen when you get this team together with that young quarterback.
Yeah, and you bring up the fact that like they struggled a little bit with the red zone and everything, and Gardner Minshew was leading that charge.
Yes,
Gardner Minshew actually helped him out win some games that they probably shouldn't have won. And to be honest, like Minshew, like you could even label him as probably one of the best, if not the best, backup quarterback in this league, because there's not a whole lot of good quality backup Qs. And Minshew is kind of like one of those guys where people don't talk about him because he's been a backup for quite some time now, and they even kind of forget about Gardner Minshew, right? Like he is capable of starting for a team, he's capable of helping a team win, but he's never going to be that pinnacle at quarterback where you're like, okay, we can win a Super Bowl with the guy. Not saying that he couldn't, just saying that he's always been viewed as that backup style. So it's sad that Richardson had his season cut short. Yes, he was a rookie last year. He's still a guy that has to further develop his game when it comes to mechanics and footwork. He's got tremendous throwing power. There's no doubt about that. Probably had the strongest arm coming out in 23 by a landslide. Like the guy has just a cannon for an arm. But more than not, you look at this guy's physique. Look at how big this dude is. Like super tall, super strong. And it's not like he's just, he's kind of just heavy. He's chiseled. Like this guy has a physique that he belongs as a even like a linebacker or a D end of that nature. So, but he's super blazing fast. He's one of these dynamic guys that you can't teach size. He already has that. He's got tremendous mobility for his size, runs a 4.40. And it's got a cannon for an arm. So I think we can work with this, with Shane Steichen being the head coach, being a guy who's seen it from the likes of like a Jalen Hurts. They love his mobility. They love what he brings to the table. It's just a matter of further developing his game, which by all reports, I know it's OTAs and what have you, but it seems like he's getting a better grasp of the playbook. He's looking a little bit more loose, and not so, stagnant or confused or anything like that. He's playing more freely. So within the offense that they do, and it's also nice to have a veteran backup in Joe Flacco. Like Joe Flacco is a huge insurance policy. We've seen what he could do with the Cleveland Browns and how he helped them kind of get to where they ended up. But man, it's going to be crucial and critical for Joe Flacco to help Richardson grow as a quarterback. He's going to mature faster, and he's going to teach him the nuances of being a pro Q, which I think is going to pay huge dividends. And what was the biggest weakness of the Colts for years? Wide receiver. They just never seem to have a good group of wide receivers. Now you look at this team on paper, at least. Michael Pittman Jr. got his extension. He's locked in as that number one wide receiver, kind of just continues to get better every year. And then now you're going to pair him up with guys like Josh Downs, who had his season cut short. But man, Anthony Richardson, that was his like favorite target, is Josh Downs. And in that slot role, the guy that's very difficult to stay with, look for that connection to continue. And then in the second round of this year's draft, Adonai Mitchell, who got drafted from Texas, a blazing speedster of a wide receiver, a guy who could easily take the top off a defense. Watch for him to kind of progress and get involved as a starter this year as a rookie. The only thing that I have a question about Adonai is the fact that in college, sometimes he would drop easy passes. He makes all these difficult catches, but then once in a while, he's wide open by himself and just kind of lets it slip through his fingers. Hopefully they kind of work on that in training camp and get him locked up and ready to go. But man, you look at what they have in the starting lineup, what they have even in terms of depth. Alec Pierce was the starter last year. Looks like now he might lose a starting job, but at least he'll be involved in the rotation, along with a younger gentleman they took in the 5th round, Anthony Gould, who I think could develop very well for them too. Offensive line, this is a concern of mine. I'm sorry, I can't overlook this. Their interior of their offensive line is amazing. I think they're super solid. The tackles, to me, just haven't developed. Raymond Bernard, the Braden Smith, those two guys, they were beat up, but also at the same time, they were giving up big time plays to pass rushers. Just like it, and at times looked like they weren't even existing there. Like they just kind of weren't even involved. So that to me has got to be concerning coming into this year. Now, if you ask the Colts, they're like, oh, we have no worries. We're going to be fine. They're developing. They're getting better. But what I saw last season as an NFL fan watching some of their games, I'm like, what's going on? Gardner Minshew had no time to throw at times, where it was just like a revolving door of pressure and sacks being given up. That's got to be shored up. Now, they did make a conscientious effort in bringing in guys like Matt Goncalves, who just got drafted in the 3rd round. They're hoping he could develop to maybe be a starter at tackle. But I'm a little concerned for the Colts going into this regular season, still having those same tackles there. I hope for their sake that they're going to continue to develop and get better. And then you also got to look at, who's going to help Richardson out in the run game, not just himself, but also everybody knows Jonathan Taylor. This offense is built to score points. This offense, on paper anyways, looks like it's going to be difficult to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, and you bring up the offensive line. That has been their kind of Achilles heel, Joe. Getting a lot of the hurries and things like that, and not a lot of time. And that's where Gardner Minshew kind of actually has excelled, because he can get out of the pocket enough and be that bit of a mobile guy to make some plays for you. And it's been able to, to do that. Joe Flacco, he's the opposite side though. So, I mean, when you talk about, a veteran being there, I get that. And that'll help your young quarterback, on top of it, because Joe Flacco kind of at first started out when rookie guys were coming in, he was like, no, I ain't having that. I ain't no teacher. I'm trying to take this just starting job. Since being off and then, even coming back, he's changed his demeanor a bit. So I'm sure he'll take Anthony Richardson in open arms and help him there too. But I think Richardson's the guy for this type of offense. We saw what it did with Gardner Minshew, and I wasn't sure what we were going to see out of Steichen here. Yes, it worked in with the Eagles. I get that. But how is it going to pertain to this team? It worked really well, but the one thing they need to do is improve on 3rd down. They're 26th ranked in 3rd down conversions and 30th in 4th downs too. So they need to be able to get, the chains moving and stay effective. And like you said, the key though is that running game. It's nice that they have some actual weapons here, in the receiving thing. But Jonathan Taylor, again, only started, I think it's 7 games last year. He's got to get it going here and stay healthy and be that guy for him. So if they can do that, revolve that offense around him, and then Richardson can get it out to those wide receivers. That is the key for this team to have success.
Yeah, and the other concern for me too is when you look at Jonathan Taylor, if he gets hurt, there's really no star-studded depth behind him. There's a lot of retread type of running backs that are all going to be trying out to make the team, for one, and for two, trying to carve out a role somewhere here. You look at their tight ends. The Colts haven't had a really good tight end since like the days of Dallas Clark, if anybody remembers him. A guy that didn't wear gloves, caught everything with his bare hands. But they have a couple up and coming guys. Like we've seen Mo Alley Cox kind of emerge as one of these kind of go-to tight ends in the passing game only. Guy's he can't block, so he's limited. The one kid that I'm interested in that they drafted in 22 is Jelani Woods, where he's a guy that could do both, can block, but he's also got tremendous size and is seen as a receiving threat. So keep an eye on him. Defensively, if you look at their roster, you're going to see a lot of like, who the hell's that type of player? Where if you don't pay enough attention to the nuances of players and where they end up and how well they play, after you look at the defensive line, got a lot of well-known names. DeForest Buckner coming over from the Niners. Samson Ebukam, who's really good pressure edge rusher,
right?
Teaming up with Kwity Paye on the opposite side, along with Grover Stewart, who's locked down in the middle. They're one of the better D lines in football, hands down.
They both had double-digit sacks last year.
Yeah, they managed to unlock not just that talent there, but also they could have possibly gotten a steal in the draft in Laiatu Latu to kind of put him into this rotation of pass rushers and put him in on just passing downs this year as a rookie, learning from the vets there, as well as attacking the quarterback. The one concern that a lot of teams had, and that's why he kind of slipped in the draft a little bit, is consensus-wise was seen as the best pass rusher, but didn't go until later in the first round where the Colts were. And that's due to a neck issue that he had in college. Very concerning. I know, like, that a lot of teams they definitely worried about the fact of like, oh, what happens if he re-injures it? Could it be career ending? That is concerning. But from the Colts team doctor's point of view, they were very conscientious about it. They looked into it very deeply, and they don't have as many concerns as other teams do. So they might have potentially gotten a steal. And if he stays healthy, and that's what we all want, it'll be an absolute amazing pick for them going forward. Linebackers, on the other hand, guys that maybe not a lot of people know, or if some Colts fans might not know these guys, but EJ Speed and Zaire Franklin, two linebackers that are very good and work extremely well in this defensive scheme. They're sideline to sideline type linebackers, read and react type guys, and are always around the football. So, and then you couple them up with the secondary on the back end. Guys that, again, linebacker wise, secondary wise, not all household names. Obviously, Colts fans are going to know Julian Blackman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously, Colts fans are going to know Kenny Moore II. But when you look at the rest of the guys like Jalen Jones, they play within the scheme. They do their job. Juju Brents, also very solid. And Nick Cross at free safety. So they have some guys that are unknown, but might become known as of this season, where they might show you some things that you're not used to in the back end of the Colts defense. We know that after Stephon Gilmore moved on from the Colts, and everybody was so worried about the hole that he opened up here, but nobody really paid attention to this back end of this Colts defense last season, where some of these youngsters stepped up and played admirably well. This defense, on paper anyways, when you look at them, man, oh man, there's not a weakness. There really isn't. Like, you might maybe make the case for some of these younger corners and you're not really 100% sure on, but I tell you right now, this is one of the better and well-kept or well-put together defenses in this division and maybe even the conference.
Yeah, and you talk about them real quick, and just before we move on, Julian Blackman last year, 88 combo tackles, 4 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries. So a really great season for him.
Nose for the ball.
And like you said, Kenny Moore on the other side too, also 3 picks for touchdowns. So 2 of them were 2 pick six.
Yep.
So that secondary is good on top of that front line. So, I mean, that's all you need. Cause like you said, you get that pressure, you're getting the sacks. If you're not, you're pressuring them enough to make a mistake. And then you're getting those picks by that secondary right there. And the secondary is holding them off in like a zone and things like that. So big for them. Excited to watch the Colts again coming up this year with their quarterback.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.